This is Swipe on Your Money.
Hello, I'm James Daggar-Nickson. Welcome to Swipe, the show designed to keep you up to date with all the latest and greatest trends and products in tech. Loyal fans, we have heard your calls. You want more artificial intelligence, and we are more than happy to oblige. It is the greatest thing since sliced bread, some people say. The next technological revolution sets to not only impact our homes, but also, and critically, our workplaces. So what better way to celebrate this accelerating technology than look at three Aussie companies that are using AI to change the game? Coming up, we'll be speaking to a CSIRO-backed company that is using AI to better predict and manage Australia's ag sector. Plus cancer. It's touched many of our friends and families' lives, but one Brisbane-based company is using AI to detect it faster, cheaper and more accurately. More on that in just a minute. But first, Doe is the latest in a line of neobanks ready to give the Big Four a run for their money. Unlike the others, Doe is a smart bank account, one that features an AI-packed personal assistant called Sophie. Sophie calculates your expenses and advises you on spending habits to help increase your financial literacy as well as potentially reduce your debt. Well, we spoke to Doe CEO and co-founder Andy Taylor for more. Andy Taylor, really appreciate you joining us today. Lots and lots to talk about, but just for those unaware, explain Doe.
Sure. Doe is best described as a smart bank account config. We're a platform. We partner with a bank to provide the banking services behind the scenes, but really we're here to help people foster financial wellness around their everyday expenditure. And
you're doing very interesting things in terms of how to accomplish that, and I want to get to some of the technology, but we've seen a big proliferation in terms of neo-banks, certainly following on from other developed markets. How is Doe different from some of the others that people might have heard? You know, Ninja, Volt has been in the press recently. Yeah. How are you different to them?
Look, I think we're very different. We're a technology company first and foremost, so we're not actually looking to become a bank. And I think that's quite an important point, because what we see as the others is pursuing this mobile-first approach to getting a banking license and, again, building a balance sheet approach to scaling up traditional banking products. We see an opportunity to build technology that can really align to positive financial outcomes for customers. So it's much more of a platform-based business model that we're pursuing.
Okay. What do you see as the benefits of that? I mean, we'll get to you've been able to avoid getting a banking license through partnering with an actual bank, but in terms of using technology to get people to positive financial outcomes, just explain that.
So we're heavily investing in artificial intelligence in terms of helping people better manage their money. So the whole technology stack, if you like, is dedicated to actually understanding what people's incomes are, what their expenses are, and where we can help optimize them to get ahead. So this really comes down to how can we help you better save and eventually build wealth through, you know, more targeted investment management solutions.
Right, and look, we were talking a little bit before coming on air. So the idea, what the starting point is, essentially where does somebody want to get to? And then you work out the strategies or what needs to be put in place in order to get to that point.
Yeah, correct. So through open banking, what we allow you to do is connect all your existing bank accounts when you download the application. So we can get a 360-degree view of your financial health profile. So effectively, we're building a balance sheet on the customer in the back end. That then allows Sophie, the AI, to project forward. So understanding where you are, what your current salary cycle looks like in terms of income and expenses, and then saying what are the opportunities to squeeze more out of it so we can actually get you saving. So she's asking you, what are your savings goals? How realistic are they? And then using the algorithm to actually determine the best way to help you achieve that goal.
How ready are people, do you think, for Sophie, for example, for AI having I suppose, an overarching view and place within a financial strategy?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I think that there's a number of trust levels that we see we need to go through. I think if you look at the ultimate vision for us, which is a fully autonomous banking experience where the customer becomes, dare I say it, passive in seeing how the AI can actually improve them to the levels that they couldn't hope to themselves. I don't think we're ready for that just yet. So where we're starting with is really how can the AI help you in your daily lives, give you better insight so you can make better decisions at the right time. And I talk a lot about opportunity cost, and that's something that banks or traditionally we don't have. It's always looking back based on past decisions, where I think if the AI can actually say, look, you underspent on coffee yesterday, we found $6.50 for you. What would you like us to do with it? Here's 3 options, and here's the opportunity cost of those decisions. So it's always looking forward, giving you insight at the right time so you can make the best decision.
Who is ready for that? I mean, if you're looking at, obviously going to market, there must be certain segments of the market that you think would probably be more appreciative or more open to this sort of this jump as far as banking is concerned.
Yeah, we talk a lot about this Henry segment that we're after, which is a high-end and not yet rich segment. It's an affluent segment, well-educated, tech-savvy millennials that live in cities like Sydney, who use technology to give them more time back and make them more efficient. They're early adopters by nature, and they're always willing to try new things if it can help them. Now, they're very critical, but what's powerful about that demographic is that they're so influential, and they will help us push that up the adoption curve.
What does it mean, do you think, for the incumbents? We often look at banking here in Australia. It is dominated by 4 banks, an oligopoly of 4 major banks. And while there is the ability for people to move across, perhaps not as easy as you might with a telephone company, for example, they can. But there's been, you could argue, a degree of apathy, people not moving to get the best deal. Where does this fit? I mean, is this a challenge, a real challenge, or is this something that sits to the side? I mean, how do you view the evolution of dough as it sits in an Australian sort of a banking landscape?
Yeah, so I think it's a real challenge to the banks, especially with open banking coming, because once that's enforced, I mean, we're effectively doing open banking by default in the US at the moment. They've just gone ahead and done it and not waited for the regulation, which is quite interesting because they're ahead in so many ways, quite behind in others. But here, once open banking is enforced, and we can allow customers to transpose or bring that data with them, that enriches propositions like ours to the level that we can be relevant on day one and be quite insightful. Because if we didn't have that data, it is a bit of a standing start.
AI is not only changing our banks and financial services, but it's also changing the ag industry. Melbourne-based Digital Agriculture Services is applying machine learning and AI to develop rural data-powered solutions that transform the way rural assets are assessed, valued and monitored. With the help of the CSIRO, this ag tech company has built the first rural intelligence platform, a cloud-based technology that is integrating and connecting once inaccessible data and models with CSIRO's science. We spoke to CEO and co-founder Anthony Wilmot for more. Anthony Wilmot, really appreciate you joining us today. Look, just to start with, tell us about DAS. Tell us what you guys do and how it came about.
DAS was established in 2017, and our focus is really on agri-analytics. How do we help farmers and the ecosystem that supports them to make business decisions? It came out of some work I was doing with the CSIRO, and we recognised that if we could bring together new data sources, machine learning and AI, we could really have a profound positive impact on Australian agriculture.
And I want to get to some of that new technology that you've introduced in just a minute, but what was the ag space like before you guys started working in it? I mean, how current as far as technology were they actually at that point?
Well, I think there's lots of people who are providing technology and really focused on the needs of farmers. There's lots of great Australian-based technology companies who are working in this space. Our focus is quite different. We think about the decisions that are made around the farmer and think about the business decisions. We know that there's $125 billion worth of business decisions made every year, and they're made on incomplete or inconsistent data. So our focus is if we can help there, we can really drive change.
And just for those, those laymen of us out there that are trying to understand how that actually works, just explain the role of machine learning and AI that you've introduced, how it actually works with the ag space, with the farmers.
It's a great question. Our focus is really about answering really specific business questions. So in partnership with the CSIRO, we built the first automated valuation engine, which really uses machine learning to value every farm in Australia every 30 days. And what we do is we take all the key variables that farmers, valuers and banks look at every day, the productivity of the farm, size, location, sustainability, risk, and really bring that together in a really interesting way so we can help people understand the value of every farm in Australia.
And look, this might seem like a silly question, but I suppose from the farmer's perspective, why is that important? What are they able to get out of it, and what's the value, if you like, add for them with having that sort of knowledge, that sort of data?
Well, farmers, investors like using our solution. One, it helps them understand the value of their farm, but it also helps them find other properties they'd like to invest in, and helps bring a consistent, standardised insight that enables them to make decisions with greater confidence. What we're seeing is those people who want to make business decisions need this kind of data every day.
What is the opportunity here from a business perspective? Obviously it's a big sector here in Australia. Your thoughts on the opportunity here, but also I suppose the application, the potential application in overseas markets?
Yeah, we've started in Australia in partnership with the CSIRO, but our focus is really global. What we're really thinking about is how do we bring that data to help people make decisions globally. So in response, we're working on issues like carrying capacity, productivity measures. We give every farm in Australia a productivity score for the last 17 years, but we're also looking to see how we can enable global investors and local investors make better decisions. Our plan is to start in Australia, but we'll expand globally over the next number of years in partnership with our investors and the CSIRO.
Look, this is potentially a difficult question to answer because it involves a lot of crystal ball gazing, but how significant a change and how big an opportunity do you think the likes of machine learning and AI are going to bring to the ag space, but just more broadly when we're looking at different industries and sectors and the way we do business in the past to how we're likely to do it in the future?
Well, I don't have a crystal ball, but what we're seeing is multiple investments and a real change in how decisions are being made using machine learning. And all industries are awash with this thinking. What we've found is it's really become an enabler to help farmers and the industry make better decisions. If we could put that into their hands, what we're finding is that people are really embracing this type of data to support the decisions they need to make. The work we're doing with rural valuers at the moment is really interesting. A significant amount of their time is spent just correlating and collecting data. When we bring it into the one location, it helps them to focus on the thing that they're really good at, which is applying their smarts and experience to make a better decision. So my sense, we're going to see more and more application in off-farm decision making, and I think that's a good thing for agriculture, but it's a good thing for Australia. If we can reduce risk in lending, in insurance, in making decisions in investments, that's good for the farmers, but it's also good for regional communities, and that's part of our broader commitment.
Anthony Wilmot, it's a wonderful story, wonderful business. Really appreciate you making time for us today. Thanks so much.
Oh, it's our pleasure. We look forward to sharing what we're doing with the broad community.
Time for a quick break. Coming up, we've talked banking and farming, but how is AI changing medicine? We'll tell you after this.
We'll be back with more Swipe on Your Money, and be sure to check out yourmoney.com.au. And now, more Swipe on Your Money.
Welcome back. Maxwell Plus is a growing Brisbane-based medical startup rethinking the way we detect and diagnose cancer. They combine machine learning and medical imaging to make cancer diagnosis faster, more affordable and more accurate. And with 1 in 2 Australians set to be diagnosed with cancer by the age of 85, this kind of tech can truly be life-changing. Well, we spoke to Maxwell Plus CEO and co-founder Elliot Smith for more. Dr. Elliot Smith, really appreciate you joining us today. Lots to talk about, but let's just start with Maxwell Plus. Just explain Maxwell Plus, what you guys do.
Yeah, sure thing. Thank you so much for having me. So Maxwell Plus, we're a Brisbane-based startup company looking to deliver what we hope to one day become a new gold standard in prostate cancer care by partnering clinicians, with artificial intelligence to analyze patient data and get a better, earlier diagnosis of prostate cancer.
Just explain how that potentially works. I mean, AI seemingly is being introduced to everything. As far as the part of healthcare, prostate cancer that you're looking at, how do those two worlds meet and work?
Certainly. So we take the data that a clinician will be looking at today. We synchronize that data into our system, and our algorithms look through blood test data, they look through imaging data, even simple things like age, family history, and it combines all of that information into an algorithm that we've developed that gives you an accurate risk of prostate cancer given the data that we have on you at the time. And we can apply this from your earliest blood tests, things like the PSA, all the way through to medical images, MRI scans that are taken to help assess whether there's prostate cancer there. So we can give you a very accurate picture of your risk and help your clinician understand what that means and communicate that to you through a web app that we've developed that allows you to see the reports from your clinician and understand what your data means and what your risk is and ultimately, what decisions you have in front of you.
You mentioned accuracy. I imagine for a lot of people that's going to be pretty critical, the level of accuracy. How is it accurate? I mean, what are some of the safeguards, some of the measures you're taking and the confidence that gives you that base level of accuracy is there?
Yeah, definitely. That's an excellent question. And, making sure that this is accurate and is resulting in better outcomes and less unnecessary testing is the key thing for us. And we've put a number of safeguards in place to ensure that the algorithm is as accurate as possible. We've validated on a large number of patients from a historical data set to ensure that it performs accurately, and we're seeing really great results there.
What about from the patient's perspective? I completely understand the benefits that you're going to see from the clinician's perspective. I suppose any inputs that helps their decision-making process and so forth is going to be welcome. But what about from the patient's perspective? What are the benefits that they would likely see from having this overlay of AI involved?
Certainly. So where we're seeing a lot of value to patients is on two factors. One, having that better accuracy, that better certainty means that there's less unnecessary testing for patients. And that's especially important as later down the diagnostic pathway, the tests that we do are things like biopsies, which are quite invasive. And we want to make sure that only those patients that really need those biopsies are going to get them. Now, another thing that we're doing, which we think is quite unique and exciting, is offering patients the ability to join the app and connect with a care team of prostate-focused clinicians. We see that within prostate cancer, in the group of people who are at risk, which is typically men 40 and above, only about a quarter of those are participating in any sort of testing. And we think that with the right guidelines and the right accuracy, we can see those numbers come right up and really reduce the number of late prostate cancer diagnoses and the number of deaths from prostate cancer.
Dr. Smith, look, just finally, you're the CEO and co-founder. How did it come about? What led you to actually go down this path?
Yeah, so before I was doing this, I was finishing my PhD, and my PhD was in biomedical engineering, focused on image-guided radiation therapy and designing hardware for those systems. And what they do is they use images to adjust radiation therapy in real time to make sure that radiation hits cancer and doesn't hit healthy tissue. And that sort of project and this whole idea of using technology to support the diagnostic and treatment workflow really resonated with me, stuck with me. Academia wasn't my calling in the end, but I wanted to do something in that space because technology can have just such a big impact on something as important as health. And that's really what drew me towards this business and this sort of wider idea of artificial intelligence in healthcare.
Coming up, AI is not only changing the way we do business, it's also changing some of our favourite products and gadgets. We'll take you through some of the best after this break.
We'll be back with more Swipe on Your Money, and be sure to check out yourmoney.com.au. And now, more Swipe on Your Money.
Welcome back. Well, we've taken you through some Aussie AI businesses, but how about some AI gadgets? Well, the Australian's senior tech reporter, Chris Griffith, joined me a little bit earlier to take us through some of the highlights. Chris Griffith, thanks very much for joining us. Excited to talk about AI as far as consumer tech is concerned. Arlo, very well known for their smart cameras, their security cameras, but a fair degree of AI in there as well.
Absolutely. They're getting cleverer and cleverer. Arlo have just released late last year something called Arlo Smart, which is a service, costs you $4 per camera per month, so it can add up to a bit. But it adds a lot of object recognition to your smart cameras. So it can tell if the movement that it's seeing is swaying trees rather than a burglar. It can tell if you have it on the doorbell or above the door, the camera, if there's a package there, for example. It can identify a package, identify if there's vehicles out front in your yard, and it can tell you more specifically about them. It can identify whether your cat and dog is the source of motion, and you may want to discount that if you're just looking for burglars.
Exactly.
Or you may want to know exactly where your cat's playing up in.
Let's talk Huawei. Difficult 12 months or so, to say the least, for Huawei. But from their consumer product side, things are going pretty well. We looked at a smartwatch and a phone, and it's the Mate Pro 20. It's got a fair bit of AI in it.
Yes, absolutely. They brought this out late last year, and it's a real showcase for AI capabilities in phones. I mean, really, when it comes down to consumer areas, AI, there's kind of two branches of it. There's object recognition and there's voice translation. In terms of the camera, it can recognise, when you point the Huawei Mate 20 at something, 25 different categories of objects, and then it actually varies the processing of that image accordingly. Now, the other use of that is they've got a calorie app as well, where you can, in the camera function, where you can point it at a tomato and it'll tell you that it's got hopefully 0 or 1 calories or whatever tomato has. But we're talking about this before, and it just used object recognition. So if you took it to the bakery and tried to work out, vanilla slices, whether it's got extra cream or sugar and that, I think it wouldn't do that. You need another type of chip, which is called a spectrometer chip, to do the more complex analysis.
What about robots? We love robots. Love robots. What are we seeing consumer tech robot AI-wise?
Okay, well, starting to, apart from, I guess, the Google Home and Amazon Echo capabilities, we're starting to see some of that built into robots that can be proactive. They'll see you in the room and they'll start saying, hey, how's your day going, or all this type of thing. But we've seen it with a robot called Jibo, and Jibo at the moment is a bit in limbo. We don't know whether whether that is going to actually continue or not. But while you can engage with them and feel some emotion towards them, like the little Aibo robot dog, they're not really as clever as the market believes they are. And there's still a long way to go before we get a good social robot that can actually analyse the environment properly and understand what's happening, and then it's going to make much more sense, the human engagement.
I have this recurring nightmare, the idea that in the near future, when robots are commonplace in our households, and I wake up in the middle of the night and there's this creepy looking robot standing over me just going, hello James, I've been watching you, and it's going to freak out. I don't want that. Is that coming?
Well, it'll be possible. We have to learn, that technology, we don't have to accept everything that technology can throw up.
Time Kettle. What is a Time Kettle?
Time Kettle is a very interesting little company that has harnessed the translation services of Google and Microsoft to provide on-the-fly translations in 21 languages using earbuds. So you have your phone there and you put your earbud in, and if you're walking down the street with a mate or someone they put their earbud in. You can have a spontaneous conversation between different languages.
Are we heading towards a time where perhaps we take you can those IQ buds, right? You put the IQ buds in and you could go to, I don't know, let's say China, for example, and you could be, listening to a conversation or someone's talking to you in Mandarin or Cantonese, and it is in real time with no real delay actually translating the person talking to you into, well, let's say English for lack of a
Well,
better.
I think that capability is there. I mean, that's not rocket science given the translation services are there. There's a lot of debate.
I think that is cool.
Yeah.
That's extraordinary.
I think that, yeah. What will happen is we'll start to see some of these services come back to the phone. They're happening in the cloud, which is fine.
Yeah.
But that creates a bit of latency. And when you start to say instantaneous, then I think what you're going to start to see to make that happen is you're going to get a sharing of the computer power of the phones, which are pretty powerful, and the cloud to make that seamless possible.
Chris Griffith, it is a brave new world. Appreciate you joining us. Thank you. Well, that is Swipe for this week. You can catch up anytime online. We also have a podcast. I'm James Daggar-Nickson. Thanks for watching.